Hello everybody and welcome to episode number 5 now of Faster Than a Bullet. We're already on 5 episodes. This episode today is going to be a review of the weekend's action, more specifically the MotoGP action as well as its feeder series and NASCAR. So let's get straight into it and start off with MotoGP itself, because I'm going to be honest, I wasn't able to catch much of the feeder series and I did miss quite a bit of NASCAR. So I'm just going to preface that very quickly. But yeah, let's get straight into it. And of course, MotoGP were in Brazil for the first time since 2004 at the Goiânia circuit, which is also called the Autódromo Internacional Ayrton Senna. The first time since 1992 they had raced at that specific circuit. Before that, they had raced in Jacarepaguá at the track, which unfortunately no longer exists now. It was named after Nelson Piquet. But we're going to have a little look at the results, and we'll start, of course, with the team who absolutely dominated proceedings, and that was, of course, Aprilia. They were absolutely fantastic, taking a 1-2 finish with Marco Bezzecchi and Jorge Martin. It looked as though after the sprint that perhaps Ducati would be the favourites, as Marc Marquez won the sprint ahead of Fabio Di Giannantonio. However, that did not happen. Aprilia, when it came to race day, they had fixed some issues they had with the setup, and they went on to absolutely dominate the affair of the race, and nobody came anywhere near them. And, you know, this showed because out of the top 10, 4 of them were Aprilias. Ayagura had another really good race and he finished in 5th. Raul Fernandez wasn't as good this weekend as he was in Thailand, but he did finish inside the top 10. However, let's just start off with Marco Bezzecchi. This guy, whenever he gets into the front of a Grand Prix race, he is very difficult to stop. He is lightning quick the weekend, and he was, you know, thoroughly deserving of the victory. He won by, I think it was 5 seconds, roughly, from Martin in what was a really, really dominant drive, and it shows that he is going to be a difficult guy to stop this year if Aprilia can maintain this form throughout the overall season. And, you know, whilst this is only him leading the championship now, of course, Acosta led the championship before the main race on Sunday. It still just shows, 3.2 seconds he won by from Jorge Martin. And then Fabio Di Giannantonio was another 5/10 back from that. So it won by 3 seconds, which is quite a margin on a motorbike. And, you know, Aprilia finishing 1-2 for the first time since the Catalan Grand Prix in 2023. This just shows that they are starting the season off perfectly, and Ducati are going to need to respond to this. All the manufacturers are, but especially Ducati, who might finally get knocked off their perch after years of dominance. This is the Ducati era, one that we've been waiting for a long, long time. Because, of course, in the 2010s, it was all about Yamaha and Honda. 2020 was the year of the Suzuki and the year of the Yamaha. 2021 was the year of the Yamaha. But since then, it's just been pure Ducati dominance. You know, I remember a time where Marc Marquez would come into every weekend on that Honda and be dominating. You know, the only riders who could get near him were Valentino Rossi, Jorge Lorenzo, later Maverick Viñales, and Andrea Dovizioso and Dani Pedrosa, and to a lesser degree Andrea Iannone. But that's very different now. Now Marquez is on a Ducati and he's still really electric, but he's got competition now. The Aprilias have arrived. This is what we've been waiting for. On and off, Aprilia, for the past 2 or 3 years, they've been up and down in performance. You know, Alicia Spargaro took multiple Grand Prix victories for them. Maverick Viñales took 1 or 2 for them as well. But now they've got one of the best rider lineups on the grid in Marco Bezzecchi and Jorge Martin, a world champion in MotoGP, and somebody who has been very, very consistent in MotoGP over the years, fighting for a championship. Bezzecchi has taken his 4th Grand Prix victory in a row, which is something he hasn't done ever. Not in Moto3, not in Moto2, not in CAV Moto3, not in MotoGP. This is something that we've never seen from Bezzecchi before. And 4 of his 7 Grand Prix wins, I think it's 7, it's either 7 or 8, I'll have to go and check that very quickly. I think it's 8 wins. 4 of his 8 wins have came in the last 6 months, which once again just shows how quick this guy is at the moment, and how Aprilia have got their bike pretty perfect. So that's pretty much everything you need to know with Bezzecchi. I mean, this guy is fantastic. He's one of the best riders out there at the moment, and if Aprilia can keep giving him the car, then the bike, I should say. I'm used to talking about Formula One more so, and IndyCar and NASCAR. So saying bike instead of car, a bit weird, but I'll get used to it, I suppose. If probably I keep giving him the bike, he can perform. But the only problem is next they're going to a track where Marc Marquez has dominated over the years, which is, of course, the Circuit of the Americas. But we'll get onto that when we do. We'll get to Marquez in a bit. And we'll get to the American race in the next episode, which I'm going to film later today. But that won't be out until about Thursday, and that is going to be filled with me previewing the action for next weekend, which includes F1, IndyCar, MotoGP, and NASCAR. The whole shebang. Everything is happening next weekend. This weekend coming up, I should say. But we'll get to the previewing of the Circuit of the Americas when we do. Right now, we're talking about what's happened in Brazil. Jorge Martin, a very good race from him. We're slowly beginning to see what Martin was like before the injury. Of course, he had all that saga with Aprilia last year about where he was going to be next year and if he was going to remain with them. And now it looks like he will remain with them for now anyway, and that decision looks to be the correct one. Finishing second, his first podium in a long time, a year and a half at least, and it's a very good result for him. And, a double podium as well because he finished third in the sprint. So, first time that's happened in a long time. Of course, he used to be the king of the sprints. His main points used to come in the sprints, fighting for the championship against the likes of Pecco Bagnaia, who, as I also said about Marquez, we will get onto in a little bit. But it's a good result from Martin. He's now second in the standings, which is where he should realistically be, wanting to be, where he should be fighting to be. And it's been a good weekend for Martin. And next up they've got Circuit of the Americas, so that's going to be a different kind of challenge for them. I don't know if they've actually won there in a while, but I don't know if Aprilia have ever actually won there. I don't think they have. I'm going to have a little look at that and fact check that. I don't think they have, to my knowledge anyway. They have not. And there's only actually been two riders that have won here multiple times in MotoGP, and that is Marc Marquez and Alex Rins. But I'll preview that when we get to it. But Aprilia have never won around there before, so we'll see what they're going to be like, I suppose, later on down the line. And then we have Pedro Acosta. Look, KTM had what can only be described as an absolutely disastrous weekend. None of them were really that competitive. I mean, neither of the KTM bikes were that quick. I mean, Bastianini finished in 15th in the last points position. Binder didn't finish the race, and Vinales finished down in 18th. And all of them, apart from Acosta, qualified poorly. And so what we're getting at the moment is basically a type of performance where Acosta is basically carrying the team, a bit like what Marquez used to be doing with the Honda. And so it's very, very difficult to really look at the KTM and say this is where their performance is at, because Acosta is doing things on that bike which are miraculous, and he's still third in the standings. He won the sprint in Thailand, finished second in the main race, and whilst he only finished 7th in Brazil, he's still third in the rider standings. So Acosta's still carrying that bike, and I think he will be for a while. Now, where he ends up next year, we don't know. The rumours are he's going to go to Ducati, which will be a very interesting, how can I put it? Very interesting time period for us as MotoGP fans, because we will have two Spaniards on an Italian bike, which is quite rare for us to see, because let's just say Italians are very uptight about having Italian riders on their bikes. I mean, look at Ducati. They've got mostly Italian riders. It's either Italian or Spaniards on their bikes. They don't have anybody else, as far as I can see anyway. There really isn't many nationalities in MotoGP either. There's like half the grid is Italian and Spanish. I mean, you've got one Japanese rider, two French riders, an Aussie, a Turk, and a Brazilian, and then the rest are all either Spanish and a South African, and the rest are either Spanish or are Italian. That shows how dominant motorbike racing is in those two countries. But yeah, next we got DG. Very good race from him, finishing third. Once again outperforming Morbidelli pretty considerably, and he's having a great season. Last year he had a good season as well. And he's really showing, he is actually, a MotoGP quality rider, because, I remember at the end of his sophomore year, people were very much questioning if he should be in the category. Then he got that podium in Australia, he won in Qatar, and that was his career saved in MotoGP, essentially. So then when Bezzecchi moved on to Aprilia, there was a seat open there. There was a seat open at the VR46 team, and he took it, and he thoroughly deserves that place because he has been very, very good this season and the season before, and he's very much delivering. So that's the first Ducati done, and then we've got Marc Marquez. So he won the sprint. He was very quick in the sprint. DG and him were having a great wee battle, both in the main race and in the sprint race, and they were both, really, really fun to watch. DG won in the main race, Marc won in the sprint, and so they're even Stevens, but DG is ahead in the standings by a few points because Marc's relying more so on sprint points so far this season than on main race points after he retired in Thailand. But it's been a good race from Marc, a hell of a lot better than Pecco's, better than every other Ducati apart from DG. Ducati are slowly getting there this season, but they haven't started. They haven't come out the blocks like Aprilia have this season, in terms of performance, because Aprilia have just nailed their bike clearly. I mean, you can see it in the standings and in the results. Top 10s for all their riders in all of the races so far this season. 4 of the top 5 in Thailand were Aprilia, which amazed me at the time. Pedro Acosta basically single-handedly stopped it from being a 1, 2, 3, 4 finish for Aprilia. And then once again, 3 of the top 5 were Aprilia's this time around. Raul Fernandez finishing down in 10th, which was the worst result for an Aprilia. But Marc had a good weekend, considering setback in Thailand. He has come back, and he's come back strong though, and he's looking really quick once again this year. Despite being one of the older riders on the grid, he's still got it. He's still probably the best rider on the grid. And I would not be surprised if, come the French Grand Prix, he is probably first or second in the standings, because that's how good he is. And that's how good he has been this year, in the past few years since he's come back from the injury. And then 6th place in the standings, and I would argue that he has been, apart from Bezzecchi, the most consistent rider this season, Ayagura. 5th place in both races in Thailand and in Brazil, and 4th in the sprint in Thailand and 5th in Brazil. He's been brilliant, and Honda will definitely regret having Somkat Chantra in the team last year instead of having Agura and not signing him straight after he came back from injury, because Agura is looking like the rider that we all thought he was going to be. He is Japan's Grand Prix hope. They haven't had a solid rider, I think, since the Giro Kato in the class. I am going to go and check that, actually. How many, really good Japanese riders they've had in recent years, because obviously they had Taka Nakagami for many years, but he really wasn't one of the best, let's say. I'll have a little look and see. Let's see, yeah, here we go, right? So 500cc winners, and we'll sort by years active. Is there any Japanese riders I've missed? Okawa, yeah, Okawa was decent. The Japanese haven't really had a really consistently good rider since Tajiro Kato. And so I think Agura's, I don't know if he's got the potential to be as good as Kato could have been, because obviously, if you didn't know already, Tajiro Kato, he was considered, world championship material in the early 2000s, and unfortunately he lost his life at Suzuka in an accident during the MotoGP race. I didn't know if he's got that much potential, but he is a very quick rider, and he's definitely got race-winning potential. And another rider who's got race-winning potential, because he's already won a race, is Raul Fernandez. Difficult weekend for him. He started the season brilliantly, a podium in Thailand, finishing third, in both the sprint and in the main race, which was very consistent. He's had a good start to the season. Aprilia in general are looking really good, and they've got 4 brilliant riders. Raul's, actually beginning to now show us how good a rider he is. I mean, not many riders are so solid in his debut Moto2 season like Raul was. And so he had a difficult weekend, but I'm sure he'll bounce back from it in Kota. Alex Marquez is next, and he had a very quiet race. If I had to use one word to describe Alex Marquez's race, I would say quiet. He came home 6th, kind of just flew under the radar, got a result on the board because obviously he didn't finish in Thailand. He got 7th in the sprint, sort of just around the bottom of the top 10, middle to the bottom of the top 10 sort of area, which was a good result for him to try and get him on the board, try and get that confidence growing for this year's bike. 2026 is going to be an interesting year for the Grassini team because last year they were brilliant. They won races with both of their riders. Firmin's just coming back from injury now, and so now we're going to get a proper indication of their pace. Brad Binder didn't finish in Brazil. It wasn't a great weekend for KTM in general, as I said, so I don't think there's really much to be said about the KTM guys apart from Acosta, who's working miracles on that bike. As I said earlier, Franco Morbidelli really did not have a good weekend. He finished down in 12th in what is basically his home race, one of his home races. He's got Brazilian heritage, and he's got sort of a half Brazilian, half Italian helmet. And not a great weekend for him, finishing in 12th. He did get points on the board, but not many. And he got absolutely battered by DG in terms of the where they finished, I suppose. DG's quite a bit ahead of him in the standings at the moment. And of course, I remember Morbidelli being a championship contender in 2020. During that COVID season, he was really quick that year. And yet, he's had injuries and he's had far too many incidents to the point where people genuinely question if he's a good enough rider to be on the grid because sometimes he can take too many risks and be a bit of a lunatic. Sometimes. And there is evidence to support that. There's plenty of incidents that he's been involved in over the years which have been very much avoidable. So that's the top 10 of the standings done. So now I'm going to try and quickly sort of make my way through the rest of them. I'm just going to skip talking about Yamaha because they are absolutely terrible. And so I have got no expectations for any of the riders, not even Fabio Quartararo, one of the best MotoGP riders of his generation. I mean, the dude couldn't score points in this Yamaha. That's how bad it was. He scored points in the sprint, but he didn't score any points in the main race. That is how bad the Yamaha is at the moment. The only rider who scored points for Yamaha in the main race was Alex Rins. And, Rins, I'm expecting him to do well in America next time out because, as I said earlier, he's won multiple times around there. But Yamaha in general are not going to be quick this year. And Fabio jumping ship, it just shows that the team is really struggling. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. I'm not going to really talk about Yamaha and KTM too much. Honda are an interesting case because some weekends they are, genuinely quicker than KTM. And they're obviously going to be quicker than Yamaha, but they're just a little bit, they're lacking sort of consistency to be anywhere near Aprilia and Ducati. But they are making progress, and you can see that in the results. I mean, Johan Zarco has had a very good start to the season, and you need to remember they have got some very good riders. And in Thailand, and I'm gonna keep battering on about this because it's a shame. Johan Mir was on for I think it was a 5th or a 6th place finish before he had an engine failure. So there is potential in that bike. It's just it needs a little bit more work on it. Obviously, Mir crashed out in Brazil, and that's something that we are unfortunately used to with him. With the two main Honda guys, you get very, very polar opposites because Marini is consistent. He doesn't fall off the bike very much at all, brings the bike home, but isn't ridiculously quick. And then you've got Mir, who's really, really quick, but he just gets, too involved in incidents, sometimes goes above the 100%. And as a result, he ends up often not finishing races. And that's why Luca's 12th in the standings and Johan is in 19th at the moment. Although I think if that engine problem hadn't happened for Johan, he'd be much further up in the standings. I mean, I'm looking at it now. He's got 3 points on the board. If he had finished, inside the top 10, he, would be up in probably round about where Luca is, actually. Probably ahead of him. Yeah. He would be. He'd be on 14 points, which would actually put him. So believe it or not, if Johan Mir had finished where he was in the Thailand Grand Prix, he would be like set eighth in the standings. That's how crucial he that problem was for him. So that's a little bit for food for thought when it comes to Mir anyway, but he does need to finish more races. Zarco, as always, outperforming the bike, once again showing how his experience can come in clutch. Ninth place, a good result for him. I think him and Alex Marquez had very similar races where they just went under the radar a little bit, but they got the result. Fermin Aldeguer back in MotoGP, racing basically with all sorts of pain in his body, to the point where as soon as he gets off the bike, he's literally got a crutch, and yet he's still riding the bike, and he finished in 8th, which is really impressive. He finishes, whilst he did finish as the worst Ducati that finished the race, it's still very impressive. Actually, no, he didn't. He beat Morbidelli. He beat Morbidelli, so he did. So actually, that's a lie. He beat Morbidelli despite being in extreme pain. And he also would have beat Bagnaia, who we'll get onto in due course. I think I'm going to wait until last to talk about him, because he deserves his own little segment for how bad he's been this season. Diogo Moreira, I think, him and Ayagura come under the same category of consistent. 2 13th place finishes in the first 2 races of the season, including points in home in Brazil. First rider to score points at home in Brazil since Alex Barros in 2004 in a Grand Prix race, although that was the last time they raced in Brazil, and Barros finished in 5th that occasion. And I think I think that's actually everybody I've covered now. So yeah, let's talk about Pecco Bagnaia. Fraud watch. What is happening? Pre-season looked very good. There was promising signs that he would be back to his best, and it hasn't happened. It's not been good. He finished 9th in Thailand, 9th in the sprint in Thailand. He finished 8th in the sprint in Brazil, but he has only finished once in the last 6 Grand Prix, I'm pretty sure. Not a good start for him at all, and it's his worst start to a season since 2022. Now, he did win the championship that year, but I don't think that's going to happen this year, folks. I do not think that's going to happen this year. He's just not got the pace. And he's crashing too much. Simple as that. He's making too many mistakes, and there's no excuse for it, because, I mean, his teammate, Marc Marquez, he's fighting for podiums and race wins. Sprint race wins, that is. Meanwhile, he's down in 13th in the standings with 6 points from main races this season. 7 points, sorry, from main races this season. And he's gotten 3 points? Yeah, 3 points from sprint races. He's behind 2 Hondas, 2 KTMs, and every Ducati rider that's competed in both races this season. And to add to his woes, Aldeguer has missed an entire race and is only 2 points behind him. So if he doesn't do well in Kota, he is going to be the worst Ducati in the standings, despite the fact, in terms of guys that have competed that are competing full time, so discarding Michele Pirro, which just shows how bad he's been. Fraud watch. So that's MotoGP covered. I didn't really watch Moto2, Moto3. I'm gonna be honest. I missed Moto3, but I didn't miss Moto2. And I have to say, it was a great ride from Alex Escreech. He was very unlucky not to get a podium. And it was a great drive from Danny Munoz as well. Danny Olgado is going to be the man to watch this year. Him, Manu Gonzalez, and David Alonso are going to be the main guys to watch this year. Alonso finished only 5th in Brazil, but I expect he's going to be come back stronger. I mean, if you look at that top 10 in the standings, it's full of a lot of talent. You've got, Tony Arbolino in 10th. I remember when he was being considered for a MotoGP seat. David Alonso in 9th. Vietti in 8th, although I think his time for MotoGP is probably passed by now. Ivan Ortola, who's been, up and down the last couple of years, but, he's still a very talented young rider. Colin Veijer, who is the main Dutch hope for MotoGP in the next few years. I mean, Zonta van der Gerberg's not been good enough, and he's trying to prove at the moment, I suppose, that he's not just on the grid because of his dad's name, I guess. Angel Piqueras has just been unlucky with both races. He hasn't finished either of them. And Rueda will need a bit of time to adjust. Same with Senna Aegis, who finished only in 18th in Thailand despite starting on pole. There's quite a few riders that are, below 20th in the standings who still have a lot of potential, especially the likes of Aegis. But the main guys to watch out for this year are going to be Holgado, Alonso, and Gonzalez. Holgado had a great race, winning from the pole, taking the fastest lap. And he is going to be hard to stop this year in his sophomore year. He had a great rookie season. And it's going to be expected that he is going to be high up in the standings. I remember when he was in Moto3 with KTM, and he was doing a very, very good job there. And I expect him to be really quick this year on the Calyx bike for Aspar, who are one of the most prestigious teams around. And then Moto3, and I was really happy to see this. Veda Pratima, one of the most high potential Asian riders out there. He's done a great job. I remember on his debut, he did really, really well. Hakim Danish did really well on his debut in Malaysia as well. He was running very well, and he finished 10th in Brazil. But Veda Pratima, he is going to be a very good rider. And I think in a few years' time, he will be sort of the main hope for Indonesia when it comes to getting a MotoGP rider. There's not many others that are coming through the ranks, and same with Hakim Danish when it comes to Malaysia. Both of them are very, very quick riders at the moment. Casey O'Gorman's having a good season as well, and he's already doing what Scott Ogden has failed to do in like 3 seasons, and that is finish consistently in the points. And he's done that in his rookie season, and that just shows Irish are better than the English. Nah, I'm joking. Seriously, when it comes to motorbikes, the English are completely mudded when it comes to producing good riders. Yeah. And by the way, I can say that as like I can like defend Scotland and say we've only got 5 million people in one racetrack. England have loads of racetracks, and they got like tens of millions of people living there. So. Yeah, but Quiles, he was one of the best rookies last year, and him and Holgado, I think in Moto2 and Moto3 are going to be pretty hard to catch. Morelli, Argentina, looking very good this year with him and Peroni in Moto3. I'm expecting big things from Peroni, Carpe, Almanza, and Quiles this season because they've all been fantastic last year in their rookie campaigns, and so now you're expecting them to use those skills and that experience to be quicker this year. And so far, certainly impressive has been Quiles, second in Thailand, first in Brazil. Very, very good performances from him. So now that I've talked a little bit about that, let's head over to a little bit further north of Brazil, and we're going to get into NASCAR. Now, I'm going to be completely honest, I did not watch most of it because basically, I googled what the start time was, and it said it started at 10 o'clock, and I was like, okay, cool. I switch it on at 10. There's 40 laps to go. Yeah, I switched it on, and I was like, oh, I went onto Prime Video because that's where I watch it on because it's on Premier Sports, and I see that it says like there's an hour remaining of the program, and I'm like, oh my god, there's gonna be like 70 laps left. Nope. 40. So I tune in, and basically Keselowski's just come into the pits for his final pit stop. I think it was 50 left actually. Comes into the pit stops for his final stop, and then the last few guys come into the pits. I'm trying to remember who it was. It would have been I'll look at what the order was and I'll remember. So the guys that pitted quite late were Reddick, Hocevar. Basically, like all 3 of the Spire guys pitted really late on, and it worked beautifully for them, especially for Hocevar. But Suarez made his way right up as well. And Reddick and Hocevar and Bellini, they basically stormed their way through the field multiple times, apparently. Hocevar started right at the back. It says he qualified in 16th, but he was sent to the back due to changes to the car, which were not permitted, and he fought his way through the field and finished in 4th. And I was watching this. I was watching him pit. I watched him. He came out the pits in I think it was 15th or 16th. And he was behind Shane Van Gisbergen, by the way, Elliott. And, Elliott finished, was in the top 10 for quite a while, but he was behind, I think it was, Briscoe was the one that was in the top 10 for a while. You know, he was behind Van Gisbergen and Hamlin and Eric Jones, and I'm like, okay, maybe he can get a top 10 here. And then he's half a second quicker than everybody else in a 30-second lap. And I'm like, oh my gosh, he might finish top 5. And I'm watching him and I'm going, go on, Carson, go on, make these moves. And he gets Cindric and for 4th, and I'm like, oh my god, if only there was more laps left, because he was closing in on Blaney a little bit as well, albeit not to a massive degree. But what a performance from Carson. But Tyler Reddick, man, this guy is unstoppable. 4 wins in 6 races. First guy to win 4 of the first 6 races in a season since Bill Elliott, I'm pretty sure. I checked it, but apparently I might have been wrong on that. I don't know if Kyle Larson won 4 of the first 6 in 2021. I will go and check that. No, he didn't. He didn't. Okay, good. I wanted to make sure I got that fact right, and I did. So yeah, I did my research because I made a short on this channel, which you can check out. I looked at 8 different stats, and by the way, if you're wondering why it was such a random number, basically, if you can get a short to be under a minute, you can get audio for it. And that means that you can get more views. So I decided to check what the closest would be, basically, to a minute, and I got about 8. So I did that, and I did a bit of research, and I discovered that the last driver who won 4 of the first 6 races of a NASCAR season was Bill Elliott in 1992, and he didn't even win the championship that year. Alan Kulwicki won it, and I knew Kulwicki had won it before I'd done my research on that, because I am quite an Alan Kulwicki stan, if I must say so myself. I mean, who isn't an Alan Kulwicki fan? Dude was absolutely incredible. Yeah, so I mean, I knew who Alan Kulwicki was. Unfortunately, him and Allison both died in the same year in plane crashes. Both of them brilliant drivers. And Billy Elliott was the last guy who won, and I'm pretty sure, right, see, this is the thing, right? People who watch NASCAR regularly are going to look at me and go, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But I'm pretty sure, and I just want to check I'm right on this, that yeah, I was right. I was about to say, I was just checking that Chase Elliott is in fact Bill Elliott's son, and I was right. I just wanted to check that I was right on that, because I was like, I think that's true, but I wasn't 100% sure on that. But RFK, by the way, one thing I do want to give RFK credit for, they have been so consistent this year. They are the only team to have all 3 drivers complete every lap of the season so far. And there's only 5 drivers that have done that. And that is 3 guys from RFK, Reddick, and who was the 5th one again? It was, I think it was it Elliott or Briscoe? I think it was Elliott, wasn't it? It was Elliott, yeah. It was I was trying to remember, it was one of the chases. So, a really, really good season so far for RFK in terms of finishing consistently. And, Brad Keselowski, I was expecting him to do well this weekend. I wasn't expecting him to finish 2nd. Of course, his last win came at Darlington. I remember that race, the Spring 2024 race. I did a short on that, actually, quite a few years ago. It was me covering different motorsport events that happened that weekend. And Keselowski won that weekend. By the way, if you're wondering why I'm pronouncing his name like that, that's the Polish way of pronouncing it, Keselowski. Or it's a bit closer to what the proper pronunciation is for it. I say Keselowski instead of Keselowski. Brad Keselowski. I say Keselowski, because I've been conditioned to say names like that, Lewandowski, and so as somebody who watches football, soccer for you Americans, and also you Irish and Australian folks, I'm used to saying names like that with the European version of it, if that makes sense. But great drive from him. But I have to say, Reddick's unstoppable at the minute. Carson Hocevar deserves a massive shout out though. And the thing is, right, people go, oh, you're a Carson fanboy. Yeah, I'll admit it. I do like Carson Hocevar. I think he's a great driver. and a great ambassador for the sport. He's a very funny guy. He's very entertaining. But even his biggest haters have to admit that that was some drive. He goes from the back of the grid and goes on to finish in 4th. He's only the second driver this season to start outside the top 30 and finish inside the top 5. The only other driver to do that was Chase Briscoe in Atlanta. That shows how good a drive that was. In the first 6 races, there's only been 2 drivers that have gone from outside the top 30 to finish inside the top 5. And it shows how quick he was. And I think him and Reddick were the 2 quickest guys out there. Blaney was really quick as well, but he was especially quick. Another driver I want to shout out, I can't believe I'm saying this, Grandpa! Ty Gibbs.
You better look out. Denny is all over you. It's okay, Grandpa. You own the team. It's not like he'll wreck your favorite Grandpa. Denny wrecked me. I've been trying to pass him for 18 seconds. Grandpa, are you going to do anything? Oh, well. Is the crew afraid to talk to that little carpet muncher? Grandpa, you need to choose. It's either him or me. Joe, remember who bathed you? Oh, this is a tough decision. So where does the team stand? Corey and I have been hired to replace Denny and Todd.
Another really good drive from him, 6th place. And he is like low key becoming a contender he is low key becoming a contender for the chase, which I cannot believe, because like I was not expecting him to be this quick, but he's doing it. He's doing his thing. He's been rapid this season. He was the best Joe Gibbs car out there, and I don't know if Denny and Chase are and Bell are being forced to give their data over to Ty to make him quicker, but maybe he's just performing quicker, you know? I mean, that is a really, really good little bet somebody needs to do. Who's going to take their first win first? Is it going to be Carson or is it going to be Ty Gibbs? Because it's going to happen. One of them is going to win this year. I can feel it. The win isn't far away for both of them, especially Carson, who's been really, really good this season, especially on the long ovals. He's been very good on those tracks. Daniel Suarez in 7th, a really good weekend from him. And him and Hocevar and Reddick and McDowell were all on that strategy where, you know, they pitted. And I think, was there somebody else that was on that strategy? There was 5 of them. There was the 3 guys. It was Reddick, and was it Priest that was on that strategy, or was Briscoe? It was one of those guys, or was it Elliott? It was Chastain. It was Chastain. That was who it was. I think it was him. They were all on this strategy where they pitted with about 45 to go, and it worked perfectly for them. Suarez managed to make his way up from, I think, about 17th or 18th to 7th. He did stall a little bit because Hocevar flew past him and ended up going down the road because Hocevar was behind him after the pit stops. But Hocevar got past him while they were clearing one of the guys. I think it was... I don't remember who it was that they were clearing. I think it might have been Hamlin or Buescher they were clearing. I think it might have been Buescher. And, you know, Hocevar got past them both and he just flew down the road. But a good weekend from Suarez, once again. As I said, RFK had a good weekend. Buescher in 9th, and he probably could have been higher up than that if he hadn't had the contact with Reddick. And that was just a bit of misfortune. I think perhaps Buescher could have done a little bit more to let Reddick know that he was coming down pit road. Like, I don't know, like stick a thumb out the window or an arm out the window to say he was pitting. You know, like cyclists do when they've got a car behind them, so they let them know where they're going. So perhaps he could have done that, but I get if he wouldn't have been able to, because I mean, you're driving a NASCAR at 170, 160 miles an hour coming at that corner, maybe even 180. So you got to be really careful. But they had contact. Thankfully, there wasn't major damage for Buescher. He basically just like rode it off the wall, and his rear tire hit it, and he basically used the wall to balance his car, which was really good driving, to be fair. But he finished in 9th. Eric Jones had a really good race in 10th. You know, he got caught up in the incident with I think it was Bubba and Logano. And he managed to still finish in the top 10, so a very good drive from him. And then when it comes to the rest of the guys, one person I do want to point out, 2 actually, SVG, 14th again. Again, the SVG and Ty Gibbs might well be the shockers that make it into the chase, because SVG's oval speed is improving a lot, and you can see that, he's consistently finishing now really, really well. And he's one of the best Trackhouse. He's already, doing, he's already one of the front running Trackhouse guys. I mean, on the road and street courses, he would be the best Trackhouse by a country mile. He'd be the best driver by a country mile. But he's finally getting that oval pace, and he's finally working on that. And he's wanting to prove to people that, he can be a bit more of a success in NASCAR than the last guy to come over from V8 Supercars to race in NASCAR, which was Marcus Ambrose. I mean, Ambrose had a couple good years in NASCAR, don't get me wrong. He finished in the top 20 in the standings 3 times. But he never got a top 10 in the Daytona 500, for example. And he never really, was consistent enough. I think, Van Gisbergen's going to be wanting to sort of shrug off the sort of stereotype that drivers outside of North America can't race on ovals. And he's doing a very good job of that. And then the other guy I want to shout out is Conor Zilic. He's had a very difficult start to the season. A lot of people who are questioning whether or not he got promoted too early, whether or not it would have been better to do what Jesse Love did, which was wait until 2027. And he finished in the top 20. Last guy on the lead lap. And he had a steady race. I mean, when it came to guys who didn't have as good races, obviously Bubba and Joey Logano got caught up in incidents. Kyle Larson had his mechanical problem. I think it was with his toe link or with his shaft or something like that on his car. He was basically moving about as if he had a puncture, basically. So he ended up finishing a few laps down after running in the top 10 for quite a lot of the day. I mean, for example, he scored 19 points, which was more than, for example, Zilic, who finished in 18th, which shows, he was running well during the stages. He finished 3rd in stage 2 and 5th in stage 1. And that was roughly where he was for quite a lot of the day, but obviously he had his issues. I think there was another guy who had a last-minute incident. I think it might have been Elliott, right at the end of the race. And that, no, it was Briscoe, sorry. See, I always get Briscoe and Elliott confused because their names are both Chase. I think Briscoe had an issue right at the end of the race while he was in the top 10. So him and Larson both had late race incidents which dropped them down the order a bit, which was a shame for them. That's pretty much everything when it comes to NASCAR. I don't really think I have much more to say on that. I mean, I'll give you guys what the standings are coming into the next round in... where's the next round again? I'm trying to remember. It's next weekend. Where is it again? It is Martinsville, isn't it? Yes, Martinsville. Oh, that's going to be fun. That is going to be fun. Martinsville is one of the shortest tracks. It's a half a mile oval. That is going to be so much fun and very much chaos. Lots of chaos. But the top 16 coming into that, unsurprisingly, the leader's Reddick. Then it's Blaney in second. Bubba Wallace in third. He's dropped down a position just to Blaney. And then you've got Hamlin in fourth. Chase Elliott in fifth. Byron and Bush were up 2 positions. Bella's down 2. So they're 6th, 7th, and 8th. Then Keselowski's up into the top 10, and I did put him down as a contender for the chase, and he certainly had a good start to the season. It's been a lot better than last year, a lot more positivity from the RFK camp. I mean, all of them are, having really, really, really consistent race results. I mean, Buescher's in 7th, Keselowski's in 9th, Priest is in 12th. As I said that stat earlier, the only guys to have finished every single lap this season. The only team to have completed every single lap this season with their 3 main cars. So very impressive. He's up 3 positions. Kyle Larson's down 3 to 10th after a very difficult run. Ty Gibbs is down to 11th, which is from 10th, which is quite strange because he finished in the top 10 and he still dropped a position, which shows how good Keselowski was. Then you got Priest, Hocevar, Suarez, and Van Gisbergen all moving up a bit, and Logano dropping down to 16th. And I'm trying to remember, who is it that he's tied with? Is it McDowell he's tied with for 16th? Yes, he is in the standings, but Logano is just a tiny bit ahead on McDowell on countback. And then just outside of the top 16, as I said, you've got McDowell, you've got AJ Allmendinger, Smith, Chastain, Cindric, and Briscoe, and then Bush within... and Eric Jones and John Hunter Nemechek within 40 points of the cutoff. So a very, very, very good weekend for NASCAR. A very, very good final 40 laps, I have to say. And And a lot of people were saying, "Oh, the race was quite boring." I thought the last 40 laps were absolutely scintillating. I couldn't take my eyes off it. You know, watching Reddick manage to catch up to Keselowski, pass him, and then watching Suarez and Hocevar make their way through the field, through the guys that were on the lead lap. Anyway, it was very fun to watch. So yeah, nightmare weekend for Logano, dropping from 11th in the standings to 16th. He went from being quite comfortably in to being now on the bubble. Priest and Hocevar moving up places. Suarez, I think, is the big winner though, up from 17th to 14th in the standings, and then SVG in 15th, who is still in the chase. And we've only had one road and street race this season so far. Let's see what the next one is because that's how long SVG's got to keep himself in the playoff for. He's got to keep himself in the playoff until the Glen, which is on the 10th of May. So he's still got another 5 races to try and hang on to that top 16 place before they go to the Glen, where he will inevitably win. And then he's going to hang on again until San Diego, which is a month and 11 days later. And then from that point onward, after Sonoma, which is a week later, the rest of them are all ovals because they got rid of the Roval and they got rid of Mexico City because of the World Cup, and they got rid of Chicago because Chicago was absolutely horrific. So thank you guys very much for watching this review. I've managed to mutter on for 47 minutes, which is quite impressive. So that has been the reviewing, and I will do the previewing in a minute. I'll start doing the previewing in a minute for another video, which for another part of the podcast, episode 6. But this has been episode 5. Thank you all very much for watching Faster Than a Bullet. I've been your host, Liam Ploetner, as always, and remember, faster than a bullet from a gun, he is faster than everyone. Go quicker than the blinking of an eye, like a flash you can miss him go by. Anyway, bye guys!